This is Kevin Kotz, and I'll be your instructor for History 101 or World History 1. And what I thought I'd do for this very first video is just take you through the syllabus to show you a bit of what we're going to be doing. And I'll be switching back and forth between videos showing myself and videos showing the syllabus. So here's your syllabus. What I've done is just given you a little introduction to the history of this course. And I've given you the catalog description, and then what I do is I give you my description because I think that's probably a little more important in particular for what we're going to be focusing on. So one thing I want to stress at the very beginning is that I'm not a historian that's really big on making students memorize dates and so on. Rather, what I'm interested in, and this quote says it perfectly, it's how these historical events have affected our daily lives. Without the past, there is no present and surely no future. So we're going to be studying a time period from ancient history, really prehistory before there was writing, all the way up to about 1500 AD. So we've got a huge amount of material to cover. But I want you to be thinking about how ancient people lived and how it affects what we do today. Now, what I do is I just give you a brief introduction and what we're going to be focusing on. So there's a couple of things that we will be focusing on in class other than just going through the general details. So we want to look at, or we're going to be looking at sustainability. So, or how ancient cultures sustain themselves in times of peace, war, looking at cross-cultural interactions, migrations, social justice issues, and what's happening on borderlands. So what I then do is just give you a little description. Almost every week we will have a video lecture to watch and listen to. And some of these have tags in them. So you'll see the video playing and then a little tag will show up and you can click there to get more information on that. So I give you a couple different ways that you can contact me. So we're a totally online class. So you certainly don't have to make an appointment physically in my office, but my office is in the Student Faculty Building 436. And I've given you my office hour here. We can contact through email. I've also set up something called Zoom, which we can do a video conference or video meeting if you want to do that. I give you the required readings here. So we've got really one main book of global history. And I've given you the ISBN for this. Now, included in this ISBN are sources and a map book. Sorry, I was just looking at the actual book, and I see I didn't actually leave the title. It's called A World in the Making, A Global History. We'll also have some articles that we'll be reading during the time that we have in this semester. I've given you the learning outcomes. These are general learning outcomes. The ones that are really important to pay attention to are the ones that are in the weekly breakdown in Blackboard. I give a little section on being a successful online student and how it's really important to spend time on this class. So I know a lot of people sign up for online classes, think they can work 60 hours a week and take 5 classes, and it just never works. You have to, sometimes what you have to do is pretend you're taking a physical class and set aside what I put here is 2 hours and 15 minutes for lectures, readings, and studying. So yeah, and you have to actually do a little more than that because the rule of thumb is for every unit you take, you should be spending 3 hours on the class. And I realize that's not very useful for people who are working a lot, but you really do have to take time for this. And then I go through the grading scale, which is pretty typical. There is a late policy. I'm sort of strict on that. So everything's due by 11:59 on the day that it's due, and that's all listed in the syllabus. However, I do want to note that if you're having problems, like an illness, sorry, my cat is howling in the background. If you're having difficulties, like an illness or death in the family, contact me. So you can do the assignments if you're having an emergency, just don't not do them. There's an incomplete policy and a complaint policy. And now the important stuff for you in terms of the assignments we'll have. So there is a syllabus quiz, and it needs to be done in the first week, and you need to get at least a 90%. And you can use the syllabus to take this particular quiz. You won't be able to use any other material for the other quizzes, but for this one you can certainly use the syllabus. We will have 4 discussion boards throughout the summer, and they're worth a total of 40% of your entire grade, or 10% each. What that really means is if you decide not to do one, that's a whole 10% off your grade. So the highest you can get in the class would be a 90 or an A- if you got a 100% on everything else. So the way that we're going to do the discussions is that they will be centered around specific topics in the articles or the sources that you'll be reading. The prompt that I put up needs to be done by Wednesday at 11:59. It needs to be at least 250 words, and you have to cite if you're using outside material. If you don't post by Wednesday at 11:59 or post a response by Friday night, your grade will be lower. It could be even a 0. The idea is that we're going to be chatting back and forth with this. Now, you respond to the post by Wednesday at 11:59. You have to respond to 2 other posts by Friday night at 11:59. And there's a specific way I want you to respond. So, and I'm not going to go through each and every point here because I think they're pretty self-explanatory, but you'll be responding to 2 other people, and this is the way that I want you to do it. So quote, paraphrase the statement, discuss why you agree or disagree. You can't just say I agree. You have to say I agree because of X, Y, and Z, meaning you have reasons that why you're agreeing or disagreeing. That's due by Friday. Now, you must make a question, give a question to the person you're responding to. And then the person who wrote the original response must answer those questions by Sunday night at 11:59. And I just give here a little synopsis of what you need to do. No big surprise. To get full credit, you have to do all these. There are a couple other discussion boards, the meet and greet, learning outcome discussion board due towards the end of the class, closure discussion board. There'll be 3 quizzes worth 5% each, and these will be pretty much short answer. I tend not to do multiple choice or true false in these questions. And what that really means is it takes me longer to grade because I will have to go in and look at each and every answer. We will be doing an essay, and I'll skip the outline here for just a second. So we'll be doing an essay and you'll have a first draft. So this first draft is really a completed essay. So about 1,250 words, full bibliography, fully cited. You need to use 5 secondary sources. Now, if you haven't taken a history class, a secondary source is something that modern people write. A primary source can be a text or archaeology from the ancient world. So you'll be writing the first draft. And what I do is I give the description here of what exactly this essay is going to look like. Your 5 secondary sources need to be books or journals. Absolutely no websites can be used for secondary sources. You can use the web, a website, to find your primary source, either written or archaeology. But again, no websites for secondary sources, absolutely 0. Your essay needs to be in Chicago style, and I'll go over that the closer this gets. And I also give you something called a self-diagnostic where you can sort of check off a list on what your essay is going to look like and how to get an A. Before we do all this, you're going to be drawing up an outline, a tentative thesis, and an annotated bibliography. And I will go over how to do all these in class. Obviously, we're an online class. There's no attendance. I won't be taking attendance. But you need to be in class a few times a week. And I can check on that when you're there and how long you're actually in. I give a weekly schedule of the readings and the assignments. And I also give a key to the reading. So if a title's not listed, now if you look below here for week 1, I say watch the lectures, read this. Now I just give the page numbers here. If you look under the key, if the title's not listed, then this is the main textbook, World in the Making. Read these pages. I also want you to read the sources book. So the primary sources, I want you to read the preface, the introduction, and chapter 1. I want you to do the Introduce Yourself discussion board and take the syllabus quiz. Now, I set up the same scheme for every single week. So I won't go through all these, but week 2, watch the lecture. And then I've got 2 articles I'd like you to read. And these are on sustainability with Neolithic people. And then so on. Each week we'll have the same thing. Watch the lectures, do the reading, read the primary sources. I also have some things like some cues, like what you should be thinking about that week. So you should start thinking about your essay topic. And I say why. The outline, thesis, annotated bibliography is due in week 6, and so on. And then let me just scroll down to the end. I give a little note here on academic dishonesty, which is cheating, plagiarizing. I will try to remove you from my class if I find you doing this. At the least, I will fill out some paperwork. I'll send it to my head of department. She'll send it on to the dean, and a note will be put in your permanent file here at the university. If you happen to get 2 of these, then you can be in serious trouble, and you can actually be removed from the university for cheating. So please don't do this. And again, if you have any questions, as I say here, don't hesitate. Accessibility services, if you have a documented disability, please contact me. And usually the accessibility office will contact me beforehand. But there's lots of things we can do to make sure that you succeed in this course. If you're having academic trouble, of course, come to me first, especially when there's writing. But the Student Center for Academic Achievement, I give you the telephone number and the email. You should see them. I've given you here the Title IX information on sexual violence and harassment. No one should be discriminated against on the basis of your sex, gender, sexual orientation, in anything. And if you ever believe that someone is doing that to you, you have to tell somebody. I've given you you can come and talk to me. I've given you the Title IX office, and then I've given you some emergency information. Okay, well, I was hoping that was going to be a little bit shorter than it actually is. But if you have any questions about the course, certainly send me an email. There's a general discussion board if you want to talk about something in particular. One thing I'd like you to not do is if you have a question about your grade, don't post it on the general discussion board. Just send me a private email and we can go at it from there. Anyway, I will talk to you soon. Bye.